Okay, today's lesson is 8.4, the equations of sinusoidal functions. Okay, so I have two equations here to start with, so we're going to graph them and analyze them. So the first thing we want to do with graphing sinusoidals is making sure we're going to match our mode of our calculator and our windows with what we're inputting. So if we're doing degrees or radians. So let's put these in degree mode. So that means I'm going to go here on my calculator and push mode. And then I'm going to make sure it says degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to go to y equals and enter the equation. So 2 cos of 4x plus 1. Okay, in my window, since I'm in degrees, I've kind of thought about going from negative 360 to 360. So I went a little outside that. So I went to the 400s, I went up by 50s. And then on the y, I went from negative 5 to 5. Okay, so we're going to graph that. And you can see the graph. Okay, so I'm going to just activate this. So that's the point 0.03. And then the lowest, so we're going to calculate a minimum. Move my cursor to the left, to the right. So that point is at 45 degrees negative 1. Okay, so you can see that the lowest is negative 1 and the highest was 3. Okay, so the midline, so what would be right in the middle? So right between would be a height of 1, and you can see that the shift was up 1. So the midline is y equals 1. The period, so how long does it take to get, so this was a max, how long did it take to get to a max? So if this is 45, this is going to be 90 degrees, right? And that is correct. So 90 degrees, or if we had been talking in radians, that would have been pi over 2. And what had happened there is this 4 made your graph compress, like squish in by 4. So normally it takes 360 degrees to go through a cycle. So now if I compress that by 4, it only takes 90 degrees. The amplitude, so how far, so I'm just going to draw the midline. How far do I stretch up and down from the midline? So we are spanning 2 off the midline. Okay, horizontal translation. So cos starts, a normal cos curve starts like this. A normal cos curve. So our max is on the y axis and our max is on the y axis. So there is none. And you can see from here there is none. And the range goes from negative 1 to 3. And then the domain, it will go forever. So if we're going to write this, we could also write it like this. Okay, so we're going to graph so 1, 2, 3, we'll put a scale on there, and then 45 degrees, 90 degrees. Okay, next one. 3 sine 2x minus 45. So this is going to make it stretch outward, so the amplitude. This is going to make it compress in, so it's not going to take 360, it should probably take 180 to go through a cycle. And this is going to be moving the graph side to side. So a normal sine curve so this would be a cycle, so this would be 360 degrees. Okay, and then it should go from a height of 1 to -1, that's the normal. Okay, so we know ours is going to be stretching 3 up and down. It's going to have shifted over and it's going to be squished in like an accordion. Okay, so 3 sine of 2, this is kind of funny to type in, you might have to do some brackets. So I had to do some extra brackets there. Sine of 2x minus 45 in another bracket like that. Okay, so remember I had started with my calculator in degree mode and I'm inputting 45 degrees. Okay, so midline. So you can see the highest it goes is 3 and the lowest it goes is -3. So right in the middle is 0. Okay, and I can tell that also because I don't have a plus or minus number like I did here. So this +1 made it the midline go up 1. The period is how long it takes to go through a cycle. So you can see right here, it ends a cycle right there. And then I predicted that was 180 degrees. And it is true. So you can see it took 180 degrees because the 360 normal cycle got compressed by 2. The amplitude, it stretches 3 high and 3 low off of the midline. Horizontal translation. So y equals sine starts as a midpoint going upward. So this right here would be the starting point. And inside here it says minus 45, and that actually makes it move opposite of what you're thinking. So I'm going to type in 45 here and just predict that point is the original start out point. So that point is this point as a starter. It got moved right. Okay, so the opposite, so if it says subtract 45, that actually is right. The range goes from -3 to 3. Domain, the same. And so if we graph so this was 45 at 90, it's at the top. This would be 135 and then 180. And then we got to put a 3, -3 to show that's how high and low it went. Okay, match each graph with a corresponding equation. Okay, so from -3 up to 5, so in the middle would be 1. Okay, so we need a graph that has a +1, so it's not number 2. This would span 4 up and down, so we need a graph that says 4. Okay, well that's all of them. Now, let's look at our period. So let's take from here to here. So that is a period. So that's 90, and what are these increments here? 1, 2, 3, 30 degrees. Every move is a 30 degrees. So 90 to 10. So it took 210 degrees. So that means, oops, sorry, 90 and 30 is 120, yep. So 360 divided by 3 is 120. So Actually, all of these are meeting it. So now it's just about the translation. So we could have done a cos curve that got moved right 90. So this would meet it. It also would work to move a sine curve, because if this was a sine, it would have started here, which is 60 degrees, and a cos curve could have moved. Okay, so we have two options here. A could have been graph 1, stretched 4, moved the cos curve right 90, and the midline was at 1. Or it actually could have been graph number 3. We stretched 4, and, oh, you know what? It can't be number 1. Sorry, it can't be, because it is missing the compression. Yep, that's right. Can't be number 1. Missing the compression. And so, yes, number 3 is the only one that will work. Compress by 3 to make our period 120 degrees. We move the sine curve 60. Midline is up 1, and we stretch to 4. Okay, so that's graph 3. Next. Okay, so we're at 5, we're at -3, midline is at 1. Okay, so we need a 4 out front, and we need a +1 at the end. And let's talk about a period. So from here to here is a period. So that's at 90 degrees. And 360. So we're going up by 45s. So this one is 450. Okay, so 450 minus 90. So this has a 360-degree cycle. So there's no compression. So all these have compression. So I'm gonna guess it's that one. And let's just talk. Does it work? Cos starter got moved 90 to the right. So this one works. So that matches with number 1.